Welcome back to the channel, guys. We have a few great topics to touch on for today's wrestling news. We have a big update to some Retribution rumors, as well as another update to the Sonya Deville situation. So let's start off with Retribution. Retribution has been at the forefront of WWE's television programming for a few weeks now and have been dominating. I like a lot of things about how Retribution is being booked, but I also see a couple of flaws and a few things that I think could be tweaked a bit. So let me explain that. I love their style and their whole vibe. The black clothing, that entire mystery of trying to figure out who's under those masks. I absolutely love that. If you want to call them cowards for covering their face, I guess you can. That's a valid thing to point out. But in Retribution's defense, they are committing a lot of unlawful acts against WWE by interrupting their live programming, destroying sets, and attacking the talent. So maybe they cover their faces as a way to protect themselves from being identified by WWE. That makes a lot of sense why they hide their faces. So I'll give them that. That's a valid reason. I guess the main issue I have with Retribution right now is a lack of actual background information and story. This group has been on television for well over a month now, yet we still don't know their motives or what they're after. We're still as clueless as we were back on day number 1 of Retribution. So I wanted to get into this new report on Retribution and a few rumors that are going around. Rumors claim that Retribution was a Vince McMahon idea that he came up with real quick on the spot. They acted fast and brought the idea he had into reality. That's when we first saw Retribution. But one important huge thing to note that I think is bad news for Retribution is that there is no long-term story planned out. Reports believe that WWE is winging Retribution's role on the shows on a week-to-week basis, and that is not what I like to hear at all. Judging by this report, it sounds like Vince McMahon came up with this idea of Retribution, but no backstory or long-term storytelling was planned in advance. They're just winging Retribution's story on a week-to-week basis, and I just think that's a bad sign for us, the viewers, when WWE doesn't even know where they're going with a storyline. So what's the point of even discussing and speculating it when the actual writers themselves don't know where the story is going? I would at least expect some of them to have some sort of goal or end game for Retribution, but it's looking like WWE and the viewers both have no idea where this is all going. Another thing to note is that WWE still hasn't decided on the group's members. The original 5 members who destroyed the SmackDown set were 3 men and 2 women. But after the fans poked fun at all 5 members being under 5 foot tall, WWE has replaced some of the members with much taller talents. Even though the masks are covering their entire faces, fans have still been able to discover some of the NXT superstars that have been filling in as the Retribution members. Dio Madden, Dijak, Vanessa Bourne, Jessie Kamea, and a few others have all played Retribution members in recent weeks. However, it's still unknown if they'll actually be the final members of the group. These superstars in Retribution right now are basically placeholders. They're not the final members. Which brings me to the second bad sign for Retribution. WWE doesn't even have the final members decided on for Retribution. How in the world do you bring a faction on television without knowing the official members and without having a story planned out for them? There's just so many red flags for the future of Retribution right now that I'm a bit worried about their direction and their future. Which brings me to the third little flaw with Retribution. That's the need of their appearances to have a bit more variety to them. They started off strong with the destruction of the generator, destroying the SmackDown set, attacking the backstage area, and all those other appearances. It was always something new every time, and it really kept us guessing, and it was a bit unpredictable. Now we're sort of starting to see the Retribution just head into this reoccurring theme of just attacking random superstars during the shows. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but I just think you can only do that for so long. You have to switch it up eventually, and that's my main criticism with Retribution right now. I think they made their point with the random attacks. I think it's time for them to be given a direction or an objective. The example I used before is the leader stepping up and explaining the group's actions and why they're doing the things they're doing to the WWE. That's what I'm really waiting for, because I feel like this group desperately needs some background information about themselves. There's already a lot of rumors about the possible leader of the group. The Miz, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and a few others have all been suggested by fans to be the leader of the group. I like this idea of the leader being a big WWE name, but I think the leader should hide their identity for a while as well. Maybe the leader can sort of be like that WWE hacker where we see him all masked up on screen and then talk with a robotic voice. Something like that is acceptable. I wouldn't mind that at all. I love Retribution. As always, I think there's a lot of potential there for them as a group. But as a fan that loves storytelling, it worries me to read reports that WWE is winging their story on a weekly basis. That's not a good sign at all. Now for another update regarding Sonya Deville's situation and her possible return. As expected, Sonya Deville lost her Summerslam match, which forced her to leave the WWE. WWE also moved Sonya Deville's profile to the alumni section on their website, and Sonya took to Twitter to tweet out the word goodbye, and that was it. Obviously, this is just a long extended break for Sonya as she continues to battle the case in court. There's been some updates to the case as well. Apparently, the media was trying to get a hold of some of the evidence from the case to publish it, but the judge thankfully stopped that from happening. The judge reportedly wants to keep all that evidence and extra details away from the public, and I think that's a great move. Sure, the general public all knows about the case and the situation, but as far as the little extra details and evidence, it's really no one's business outside of that courtroom. Everything should just stay in that room. A lot of things were coming out last week from the case, but I'm glad to see they locked things up this week. Another report claims that it was Sonya's lawyer that advised for the hair vs. hair match to be postponed because they didn't think it was appropriate time for Sonya to shave her head and walk into a courtroom after that match took place. So that's official reasoning for the hair vs. hair match being dropped. There's also confirmation that Sonya was set to lose the hair vs. hair match as well. So that's interesting. As far as Sonya's WWE return goes, my early guess right now is that we're not even close. It's not like she's written off with a little injury angle. No, WWE used the loser leaves WWE stipulation. So from my understanding, that stipulation is used for much longer breaks away from WWE, especially with the circumstances of this situation. I don't think WWE will rush her back and really give her a return date. I think that's the best thing to do here is to give Sonya as much time as she needs off and let her come back in a couple of months or whenever she's ready. That's the best thing to do for her and her situation right now. I don't want Sonya to come back until she is 150% okay. I just want to make sure her mental health and everything around her is back to normal before they bring her back to WWE, because obviously all that is more important than a WWE return. But what are your thoughts on what we touched on today? If you were writing it, who would you reveal as Retribution's leader, and what would you have their motives be? Leave your comments on that below. Don't forget to subscribe with all notifications on, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.